Nobody cares. Nobody is watching. Nobody is coming to rescue you from the life you've been settling for. It might sting to hear that, but it's the most freeing sentence you'll ever accept. Because the moment you stop waiting for the world to notice you, you finally start building something real. Here's the truth. Almost nobody wants to say out loud. The world is not organized around your comfort. It's not tracking your effort. It's not keeping score of your sacrifices. People are consumed with their own lives, their own bills, their own fears, and their own small dramas. They don't have room left over to think about you. And if that sounds cold, understand the flip side. It means you're free. Free from judgment. Free from needing permission. Free to build the life you actually want without asking anyone if it's okay. Jim Rohn spent his life teaching one idea above all others. You are the architect of your own life, and nobody is coming to build it for you. Not your family, not your friends, not your boss, not the economy, not luck, you. Rohn didn't believe in waiting for the right conditions, because he understood that the right conditions are something you create through discipline, not something you're handed through sympathy. Today, we're going to break down exactly what that means. How to work hard for yourself, how to focus on your own growth instead of everyone else's opinion of you, and how to build a life so undeniable that eventually results speak louder than any explanation ever could. Stay with me because by the end of this, you're going to see your excuses for exactly what they are. Let's get into it. Number 1, stop waiting for permission. Your life is your responsibility. Most people are waiting. Waiting for the timing to be right. Waiting for someone to tell them they're ready. Waiting for a sign, a green light, an invitation to finally go after what they want. And while they wait, life keeps moving without them. Rohn used to say that time is more valuable than money, because you can always get more money, but you can never get more time. Every day you spend waiting for permission is a day you'll never see again. Here's what nobody tells you early enough. Permission was never coming. Nobody is going to knock on your door and hand you a certificate that says you're allowed to build the life you want. Nobody is going to interrupt their own busy, distracted life to make sure you feel ready. You are the only person who can give yourself that green light. And until you do, you'll stay exactly where you are, making the same excuses, telling yourself the same story about why now isn't the right time. The people who actually change their lives aren't smarter than you. They aren't luckier than you. They simply stopped waiting. They decided that responsibility for their life belonged to them. And once they made that decision, everything shifted. They stopped blaming their circumstances. They stopped blaming their upbringing. They stopped blaming the economy, their boss, their bad breaks. Not because those things didn't happen. They did, but because blame doesn't build anything. Blame keeps you comfortable in your excuses. Responsibility is the only thing that builds a future. Think about it. How much of your life have you spent waiting for someone else to move first? Waiting for your partner to support the idea? Waiting for your friends to understand your vision? Waiting for the market to be perfect, the schedule to open up, the fear to go away on its own? None of that is coming. Fear doesn't leave because you wait long enough. It leaves because you act despite it. Support doesn't arrive because you deserve it. It arrives, if it ever does, after you've already proven you don't need it. Rohn's philosophy was built on a simple but brutal idea. For things to change, you have to change. Not your circumstances first, not your luck first. You, your habits, your discipline, your standards. When you change, your circumstances start rearranging themselves around the new person you've become. But that only happens when you stop outsourcing responsibility for your life to people, timing, and luck that were never going to show up. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been waiting for permission to do? What decision have you been postponing because you're hoping someone will make it easier? Whatever it is, stop waiting. Nobody is coming to hand you the green light. You already have it. You've had it the entire time. Take it. Number 2, stop chasing approval. Build a belief in yourself that nobody can shake. There is nothing more exhausting than spending your life trying to convince people to believe in you. You explain your goals and watch their eyes glaze over. You share your plans and get met with polite nods and quiet doubt. You wait for someone, anyone, to look at you and say, "I believe in this, I believe in you." And when they don't, it deflates something inside you. So you either shrink your dreams to fit their comfort level, or you keep chasing a validation that was never guaranteed to come. Here's what Rohn understood better than almost anyone. Self-belief is not something you're given. It's something you construct, brick by brick, through the evidence of your own actions. You don't build unshakable confidence by getting people to clap for you. You build it by showing up for yourself when nobody's clapping at all. Most people have it backwards. They think confidence comes first, and then action follows. So they wait to feel confident before they start the business, ask for the raise, sign up for the class, walk into the room. But confidence doesn't work that way. Confidence is built after the action, not before it. Every time you do something you weren't sure you could do, you deposit a small amount of proof into your own bank account of self-trust. Do that enough times, and eventually you don't need outside approval anymore. Because you've built an internal reserve deeper than anything their opinion could ever shake. And understand this. Most people who doubt you aren't doing it out of malice. They're doing it because your ambition makes them uncomfortable with their own stagnation. If someone has never taken a risk in their own life, they cannot picture you succeeding at one, so they'll warn you against it. If someone settled for an average life, your refusal to do the same feels like an accusation, even if you never said a word. That's not about you, that's about them. But if you let their limited imagination define the size of your dreams, you'll shrink your entire life down to fit inside their comfort zone. The people Rohn admired most weren't the ones who waited for a crowd to cheer them on. They were the ones who kept working when no one was paying attention, who trusted the plan even when nobody else could see it yet. They understood a simple truth. Your belief in yourself has to be strong enough to survive silence, because silence is what you'll get most of the time. No applause, no headlines, no one checking in to see how it's going. Just you, your goals, and the quiet decision to keep going anyway. So stop asking people if your dream makes sense. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's a good idea before you commit to it. Validate yourself through action. Let your results, not your explanations, do the convincing. The moment you stop needing approval to move forward is the moment you become genuinely unstoppable, because there's nothing left for anyone to take away from you. Number 3. Discipline beats motivation every single time. Motivation is a wonderful feeling and a terrible foundation. It shows up when it wants to and disappears exactly when you need it most. If you build your entire effort around how you feel on a given day, you will be inconsistent, because feelings are inconsistent by nature. Rohn's entire philosophy of success was built around one non-negotiable principle. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Not inspiration, not luck, discipline. Here's the problem with waiting to feel motivated. You'll be waiting forever. You tell yourself you'll start the workout program when you feel more energized. You tell yourself you'll work on the side project when the timing feels right. You tell yourself you'll finally commit once life slows down a little. But life doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait for your mood to align with your goals. The days keep passing whether you use them or not, and one day you look up and realize the years you spent waiting to feel ready are gone, and you have nothing to show for them except good intentions. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It simply asks what needs to be done, and then it does it. That's the entire difference between the people who build something meaningful with their lives and the people who spend decades talking about what they're going to do someday. It's not talent, it's not connections. It's not even intelligence. It's the willingness to show up on the days you don't feel like it. because those are the days that actually separate you from everyone else who quit. Rohn used to talk about the compounding effect of small disciplines repeated daily. Nobody becomes successful because of one dramatic decision. They become successful because of 1,000 boring, unglamorous decisions made consistently over months and years. The early mornings nobody saw, the extra hour of work nobody applauded, the temptation to quit that they simply chose to ignore. Success isn't a single leap. It's a slow accumulation of discipline that eventually becomes undeniable. If you want to build real discipline, stop relying on willpower alone, because willpower is a limited resource that runs out the moment life gets stressful. Instead, build systems. Decide the night before what time you're waking up and put your shoes by the door. Remove the friction between you and the habit you're trying to build. Track your consistency so you can see the streak you're building, because once you can see the pattern, you become far less willing to break it. And when you inevitably miss a day, because you will, get back on track immediately. One missed day is nothing. A pattern of missed days is everything. The people who win aren't the ones who never feel like quitting. Everyone feels like quitting sometimes. The people who win are the ones who built enough discipline that quitting was never actually on the table, regardless of how they felt that morning. That's the standard Rohn lived by, and it's the standard that separates a wish from a life. Number 4. Stop waiting for support. Become your own foundation. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from realizing the people closest to you might never fully understand what you're trying to build. You imagine them cheering you on, offering encouragement at every step, celebrating your wins like they're their own. And then reality arrives, and instead you get hesitation. You get, "Are you sure about this?" You get well-meaning warnings dressed up as concern. And it stings, because you wanted them to see what you see. Here's the truth Rohn would tell you plainly. Most people can only support what they can already imagine. If they've never taken the kind of risk you're taking, they genuinely cannot picture it working. And their doubt isn't cruelty. It's the limit of their own experience. That doesn't make the doubt hurt any less. But it does mean you cannot afford to make your progress dependent on their understanding, because that understanding might never come. This is where so many people get stuck permanently. They treat lack of support as a stop sign instead of simply a detour. They think, if my own family doesn't believe in this, maybe I shouldn't either. But belief was never supposed to be a group decision. Your vision lives inside you because it's yours to carry, not because everyone around you was supposed to carry it with you from day one. The strongest people you've ever admired almost always started with far less support than you'd imagine. Not because support doesn't matter, but because most great things begin quietly, long before anyone else can see their value. Rohn spoke often about becoming the kind of person others eventually want to follow, but notice the order. You become that person first, through your own consistent effort, and the support tends to arrive after the results are undeniable, not before. So what do you do in the meantime? While you're building without a cheering section, you become your own foundation. You clap for yourself in the quiet moments nobody else witnesses. You keep a private accounting of your progress so you have proof to return to on the hard days. You surround yourself, wherever possible, with books, mentors, and voices, even ones you've never met in person, who have walked a similar road and can remind you that the silence you're in right now is temporary, not permanent. And here's the part that changes everything once you truly absorb it. The same people who doubted you in the beginning will often become your biggest supporters later, once the results speak for themselves. Not because they were wrong to be cautious, but because proof changes minds faster than argument ever could. Stop trying to convince people with words. Convince them, if you even still care to, with results. But do it for yourself first, because waiting for a chorus of belief before you start is waiting for something you cannot control. Building without it is something you can. Number 5. Master your focus. because it is the most valuable asset you own. We live in the most distracting era that has ever existed. Every app on your phone was designed by teams of brilliant people whose entire job is to steal your attention and never give it back. Every notification is a tiny request for a piece of your day, and if you don't guard your focus deliberately, it will be taken from you gradually, in 5-minute increments, until years have disappeared into a blur of scrolling you can barely remember. Rohn believed that success is less about finding more time and more about protecting the time you already have from everything trying to consume it. Two people can have the exact same 24 hours in a day, and one will build a business, a body of work, while the other will spend that same time reacting to notifications and calling it being busy. The difference isn't the hours. It's what those hours were spent guarding. Focus is not something you either have or don't have. It's a skill, and like any skill, it has to be trained. Most people never train it. They let their attention get pulled in a dozen directions, and then wonder why nothing significant ever gets finished. If you want to separate yourself from the crowd, you have to treat your attention like the scarce, valuable resource it actually is, because every minute you give away carelessly is a minute you'll never get back to invest in your own future. Start by getting honest about where your time actually goes, not where you think it goes. Most people drastically underestimate how much of their day disappears into low-value distraction. Once you can see it clearly, you can start eliminating it, deleting the apps that steal the most, setting boundaries around your environment, protecting blocks of uninterrupted time, the same way you'd protect anything else you consider precious. Then build the habit of deep, undistracted work. Not the shallow multitasking most people mistake for productivity, but real, focused, single-task effort where your full attention goes into one thing at a time. That's where actual progress lives. The people at the top of every field you admire didn't get there by dividing their attention across a dozen things. They got there by narrowing their focus down to what actually mattered, refusing to let anything pull them off of it. Your focus determines your future far more directly than your talent does. Guard it like the asset it is, and watch how much more of your potential you're actually able to access. Number 6. Work in silence and let your results announce themselves. There's a strange modern habit of announcing every intention before doing any of the work behind it. People post their goals before they've made a single move toward them, and for a moment, it feels like progress, because the announcement gets attention, and attention feels good. But attention isn't accomplishment, and the applause you get for talking about a plan can trick your brain into feeling like you've already done the work, even though nothing has actually changed yet. Rohn's approach to success was rooted in quiet, consistent effort rather than public performance. He understood that real growth almost never happens where people can see it. It happens in the early mornings nobody witnesses, the unglamorous repetition nobody applauds, the years of refinement that occur long before anyone outside notices anything different about you. If you spend your energy explaining your plans instead of executing them, you're spending the very fuel you needed to actually finish. A psychological trap also hides inside public declarations. The moment you announce a goal and receive praise for the announcement, some of the internal motivation that was supposed to carry you through the hard part gets satisfied prematurely. You feel like you've already made progress, so the drive to actually follow through quietly weakens. Working in silence protects you from that trap entirely, because there's no premature satisfaction to steal your momentum. Working in silence also removes an enormous amount of unnecessary pressure. When nobody knows what you're building, nobody is watching for you to fail, which means you're free to experiment, adjust, and even fail privately without your identity being tied to an outcome you announced too early. That freedom is enormous. It lets you move at the pace the work actually requires instead of the pace your ego demands to save face in front of an audience. None of this means secrecy for its own sake. It means shifting your energy away from performing your progress and back toward actually creating it. Let the people around you see the finished chapters, not the rough drafts. Let your results carry the weight of proof, because nothing you could ever say convinces people the way undeniable results do. When you finally do let people see what you've built, it won't need explaining. It will simply be obvious. Number 7. Push yourself harder than anyone else ever will. Nobody is going to demand more from you than you demand of yourself. Not your boss, not your mentor, not the people who love you most. They might encourage you. They might check in on you occasionally, but the daily discipline, the extra effort when nobody's measuring it, the refusal to settle for good enough, that has to come from inside you, because there is no external source reliable enough to sustain it long term. Rohn taught that the primary reason most people never reach their potential isn't lack of talent, it's lack of self-demand. They coast the moment things get comfortable. They stop pushing the second nobody's watching closely enough to notice the drop in effort, and because comfort feels good in the moment. It's incredibly easy to mistake comfort for progress, right up until years later, when you realize how much ground you never covered, because you never demanded more of yourself. Growth only happens outside your comfort zone, and comfort zones are seductive precisely because they're comfortable. Nobody has to force you into laziness. It's the path of least resistance, and your brain will always try to steer you toward it, unless you deliberately choose otherwise. The people who separate themselves from the crowd are the ones who treat discomfort as information, rather than a warning sign, a signal that they're finally doing something worth doing. Set standards for yourself that would make other people uncomfortable to maintain. Not because you need to prove anything to them, but because a low standard produces a low result, no matter how talented you are. Define exactly what you're working toward in specific, measurable terms, because vague ambition rarely survives contact with a difficult Tuesday. Build a daily structure that leaves no room for accidental drift, because if you don't decide deliberately how your day gets spent, distraction will decide it for you. And understand this clearly. The moment you stop needing someone else to push you is the moment you become genuinely dangerous to your old limitations. You stop being dependent on outside accountability, which means you can never again be stopped, simply because the people around you lost interest in cheering you on. Your standard becomes internal, and internal standards don't disappear when the audience does. Number 8. Nobody is watching, so work hard for yourself. Here's a liberating thought most people never fully accept. Nobody is tracking your effort the way you imagine they are. Nobody is lying awake wondering if you kept your promise to yourself this morning. Nobody is grading your discipline. People are consumed with their own lives, their own worries, their own version of the exact same struggle you're going through. The audience you've been performing for, in your head, barely exists. Once that truth actually settles in, something shifts. You stop working for approval, because there was never enough approval available to sustain you long-term anyway. You start working because you understand your own potential and refuse to leave it unused. Rohn believed that personal development wasn't a favor you do for the world. It was a debt you owe to your own life. The responsibility to become everything you were capable of becoming, regardless of who was paying attention. This is the real test of character. What you do when there's no reward waiting, no recognition coming, no one keeping score. Can you wake up early even when no one will ever know if you slept in instead? Can you put in the extra hour when there's no possibility anyone will notice the difference tomorrow? That's where discipline gets proven. Not in the moments people are watching, but in the countless private moments when only you know whether you kept your word to yourself. The people who build extraordinary lives are rarely the ones chasing applause. They're the ones who made peace with working in relative anonymity for far longer than felt comfortable. trusting that consistent effort compounds, even when nobody's counting it. And by the time results become impossible to ignore, the validation arrives on its own. But by then, it's almost beside the point, because you've already proven to yourself what you're capable of, and that proof matters more than anyone else's opinion ever could. So here is the real question, the one Rohn would ask you directly if he were standing in front of you right now. If nobody ever noticed your effort, if nobody ever clapped, congratulated you, or validated the sacrifice, would you still do the work? If your honest answer is yes, you already understand everything this video has been trying to teach you. If your honest answer is no, that's not a failure. It's simply the starting point for the real work ahead, the work of building a reason strong enough that it doesn't require an audience to sustain it. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is watching closely enough to hand out the credit you think you deserve. Nobody will ever care about your success as intensely as you do. And instead of letting that discourage you, let it set you free. It means permission was never required. It means the only approval you ever truly needed was your own. It means your future has been sitting in your hands this entire time, waiting for you to stop looking around the room for someone else to hold it for you. Every excuse you've been carrying is a weight you chose to keep. Every distraction you've allowed is time you can never reclaim. Every day you spend hesitating is a day someone else, somewhere, spent building the exact life you keep telling yourself you'll start on someday. Someday isn't a plan. It's the place where dreams go to expire quietly, unnoticed. Exactly the way nobody noticed the work either. Stop waiting for permission. Stop chasing approval that was never guaranteed. Stop needing an audience to justify your effort. Build your discipline in the silence. Push yourself further than anyone else ever will, because nobody else is coming to do it for you. And that was always the point. Focus on you, not because the world demanded it, but because you finally understood that nobody else ever would get to work. Nobody's watching, and that has always been the best news you could ask for.